I thank you ladies for hosting me here to talk about Aunt Midge, and I've got to throw this out to any of you that would like to answer this. What was the most outstanding thing about Aunt Midge's personality? Because she was a dynamic woman, even away from baseball. To have done what she did in a man's world in the 1920s and 1930s spoke a lot about her personality. And maybe Margie, you can start and kind of paint the profile of Aunt Midge as a person and the way she comported herself and dealt with others.
Well, she was a very gentle person for personality, very friendly with all of us, but still a very strong person and quite an organizer. She had things pretty much under control, I'd say, at her home and at work. She was a pretty strong person.
She was a leader.
And yes, she could get right in and get at the crux of the matter and get going.
Mary Beth, would you say that as a strong woman in business, was she way ahead of her time?
Well, I assume so from what we know now. I think she grew into the job. She was hired in 1919 and was named secretary by 1925, 26? 26. So she must have shown her ability in that short period that pushed her to that big job that had never been filled by a woman before.
Now, getting to know her as you did when you were much younger, very, very young, compliment to you ladies, what did she tell about her life with the Cubs? You know, when you'd have good family time with her, and I know that you went to ball games, with her and all that. But what did she tell about her life, among, some of the all-time great names in Chicago history?
Those are the things that we aren't too familiar with, I don't think.
She didn't
really talk too much at home about things on weekends when we would see her. But when I stayed in there and went to games, a lot of the days she'd come home and there would have been somebody who got hit with a broken bat or something. She spent a lot of her time dealing with those incidents at the park too, with making sure they got to first aid and got care and got everything taken care of. So we'd hear some of those things at night from her. But as far as big management things, I don't think we knew that much about it.
She didn't bring the job home, as I recall. Do you? I think she was tired and stressed sometimes, but she didn't really unload a lot at home.
And then in the summer especially, she wasn't able to come to any social functions.
She wasn't home much.
She wasn't home.
She was working 7 days a week when the team was at home. The only weekends probably that she was off is when the team was on the road, probably.
That's right. And then, so we wouldn't see her, but then in the winter she would be home, more for family things, always.
So the documents we see here, she lived on Lunt and Ashland in the Rogers Park neighborhood.
Right.
Did she make it back to Huntley a lot, or did you come into the city? How frequently did you see her?
Well, as long as her parents, Grandma and Grandpa, were living, they would come out almost every Sunday, I think.
But she wouldn't be here in the summer.
Sometimes she wouldn't come, but if she couldn't, but they would come out to visit. And then as time went on, maybe they didn't come that often. And as we grew older, we used to go in there to visit. And we'd go in and spend a weekend, and they'd take us downtown on Saturday. And we'd, and another thing, she would often get tickets to plays or to the ice follies or something that was going on, because being involved with the Cubs, and he had access to tickets and so forth.
So you spent a lot of good time with her, even away from the ballpark, at
Yes.
other events in Chicago.
yeah.
She
And
took
we
you all
would
around
go to
town.
the
Yeah.
ice follies. I remember one year we went, and we had these front row seats, and she was sitting there, right there, and one of these clown skaters just jumped right into her lap.
Frickin' frack.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
frickin' frack it was. And she had horrified look on her face. She was scared her, you know.
And she had a new
fur coat on.
Right.
And he
What
was-
happened to the coat?
And he was all sweaty.
Yeah.
A sort of a prelude to the mascots that would be in the ballpark.
Right.
They're pretty sweaty in the 90-degree heat in their
But
bird
she
or
made-
mascots.
She laughed
Yeah. Hmm.
about it, and she said later, "Well, that's what you get for getting a free ticket." You know, they know that you're right there in front, and that's who they
Got
do
the
their joke
attention.
on. So,
Right.
You say she was quiet. Did she have a pretty good sense of humor?
oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, she had a good sense of humor. Yeah.
When I used to go every day for a homestand. I'd go in and stay with them when they lived in Evanston and go down to the park by myself almost every day, and I'd sit in her
Yeah, because she had
box.
to go early.
She'd go to work, and I'd just go down later, and she'd leave a ticket for me at the pass gate. And I was sitting there almost sometimes 3 or 4 days in a row during a homestand, and so I had a lot of experiences. One day there was a great big guy sitting in the box with me, and he said, "You're going to be on television because this is a busman's holiday," he said for me. And I didn't know who he was, but it was Tom Gorman, who was an official, an umpire.
Umpire, sure, yeah.
And so I had a scorecard. I always kept score every day. And he looked at it and he said, "Oh, you're doing that all wrong." So he taught me the official way to keep score. And so later on, we always thought we were going to get to the World Series. I'd go with Midge. Well, they didn't make it, of course, and I was a young working woman, so she took me up to Milwaukee when the Milwaukee Braves were in the World Series.
Sure, 1957,
I
yeah.
went to 2 games up there with her and the office people. And sitting next to me were other baseball officials, and I think one of them was the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he said, "Can I borrow your scorecard? I want to look up something." And he said, "Wow, you keep a mean scorecard."
That's
So that was
great.
compliments of Tom Gorman. And then another day, the man who operated the scoreboard, invited me to come up before the game to see him, to see the booth and everything, which was operated behind home plate. He would do the uniform numbers, numbers of balls and strikes.
Sure.
And there were people in the scoreboard who would climb up and put in the runs at the end of the inning and stuff.
Right.
So she said, "Okay, you can go, but don't stay up there during the game." So I said, "Okay." So I went up about 12 o'clock, and I punched in some numbers, and he let me play around with the scoreboard for a few minutes. And it got closer to the game, and I said, "Thank you," and I was getting ready to go, and he said, "Just stay up here, you aren't going to bother anybody." And I said, "Oh no, my aunt said I couldn't." So he said, "We'll call her." So he called her
Wow.
and asked her if I could stay, and she said, "No, I couldn't." So